first down. They hand off to Marlon Mack. Huge hole, 50-yard line. He's at the 40, still going near sideline. He's at the 10. He's at the 5, and he will score. Touchdown, Marlon Mack. Touchdown, INDY. And again, it's picked up. It's Darius Leonard. Leonard with his second INT, and he's streaking down the near sideline. He's at the 40. He's at the 30. He's at the 20. He's going to go. A pick six for the Maniac.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Bring the Juice podcast. I'm your host, Cody Felger. Joining me, your other host, Derek Larger. Derek, where I'm from right here, looking outside, is a beautiful, beautiful day. How are you doing, my friend? How's the weather down there in Kentucky?
Oh, it's about the same, getting to be a little hotter now, but I got some good news that my brother this weekend is going to have his high school graduation after all in person.
Oh, wow.
And the place that they actually should have it. So it's great news. Very excited to be down there this weekend to be able to support him. He's been through a lot these last few months. So glad that he was actually able to go out the correct way. And also, hey, we do have another giveaway going. So if you are watching this podcast right now and you haven't done it on Twitter, or if you don't have a Twitter and you want to make sure you leave a comment on this video, be sure to do that to have your name thrown into the Colts giveaway for a 3D nightlight table lamp of the Indianapolis Colt helmet. So make sure you have that ready to go because we have that going. When did you say we were having that again?
Yeah, it goes through this Sunday. So this podcast will come out on Friday. So you still have a few days to get registered. You can register, obviously, social media on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and also on the channel in the community tab. I did post something in there. You can just leave a comment that you want to be registered, and we'll get you in there for that. But yeah, I believe I said 3 p.m. on that Sunday is when we'll do the giveaway. The first one was obviously a huge success. I got a lot of interaction from that, and we want to do the same here with this one. So super excited. And I know, Derek, you have actually one of these lights, and you seem to love it from what we've talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have one of these. I got these I got this as a birthday present. I think it was 2 years ago. I have it as a nightlight on my nightstand. It's really cool. It's a great piece of lighting that allows you to light it up several different colors, but of course I always leave it blue because who doesn't want to leave it blue when it's the Indianapolis Colts. So
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Something interesting for sure. Just another cool giveaway that we're excited to be able to do for you guys.
Absolutely. Well, today, Derek, we want to continue in our series looking at the Indianapolis Colts position groups. We've obviously already looked at the quarterbacks, the running backs, most recently the wide receivers, and now we're going to flip it to the tight end position. And we're going to primarily look at 4 guys. I know there's 6 guys listed on the Colts roster. We're going to look at 4 guys, 3 guys that we know are obviously going to be locks, and then another guy that's an interesting prospect, a guy that was an undrafted free agent that we're going to look at and just kind of give our thoughts and comments on it. So we can start here, Derek, first with obviously the tight end number 1. He's been the Colts tight end for a long time and since 2013, and that's Jack Doyle. He's been Mr. Consistent, right? He's not, Travis Kelce or George Kittle, but he's a very consistent pass catcher. He's been very consistent throughout his career with the Colts. Obviously, a guy that went undrafted and signed by the Colts and was the Colts' number 3 tight end for a long time behind Dwayne Allen and Coby Fleener. And obviously, when the Colts decided to not bring back Fleener and trade Dwayne Allen, then Jack Doyle all of a sudden is the tight end number 1. And he's certainly been a very good security blanket for all the different quarterbacks. I know he was one of Jacoby Brissett's favorite targets in 2017 where he caught 80 passes. And then even last year, he caught 43 passes. So he's been very consistent. He hasn't been super flashy. He's kind of like the anti-Eric Ebron, if you will, right? You kind of saw that whenever Ebron and Doyle were together, right? Jack Doyle saw the field a lot more because he's more of a complete overall player, right? He's a good receiving tight end, but he's also a tremendous run blocker as well. Derek, give me your thoughts here on a guy like Jack Doyle, just what Chris Ballard has really talked about and called the definition of what the Colts want to be about. He's an Indianapolis Colt through and through. What are your thoughts here on Jack Doyle?
Yeah, Jack Doyle is definitely the definition of what you want as an Indianapolis Colt football player. Jack Doyle is a great-minded guy, passionate, very fun to be around, and he produces on the field. Whether or not he matches up with top tight ends, that really doesn't matter. If fantasy-wise, sometimes you have to wonder where does he fit. But obviously, in the red zone, Jack Doyle is a very good threat to have. A guy that doesn't drop a lot of passes, especially in the last few years. He's been very reliable. He's been on the field a lot. And you said it, Ballard says he's the ultimate package. You get more than just blocking, and you get more than just passing or catching, I should say. That's the definition. People want their tight ends nowadays to be, they want them to be able to catch the football. And Jack Doyle is able to do that. But, that's his best attribute is he can do both. We see a lot of guys who are great at catching the football, but are terrible at run blocking. You see other guys that are great at run blocking, but they're not very great with running routes and making catches, contested catches, especially because they're tight ends. So it's nice to have a guy like Jack Doyle that's not super flashy, but he is going to get targets. And especially this year, with Phillip Rivers being a tight end friendly quarterback throughout his entire career, he's had a lot of great tight ends to help him, honestly. You had Antonio Gates for the longest time. You have obviously Hunter Henry for the last couple years. So he's had a lot of great tight ends, and he's not afraid to throw to the tight ends because that's where a lot of his completions go to. And I think it would be great for Jack Doyle, especially because we know what he can do in the run game. We've seen plenty of times where Jack Doyle is able to make great blocks, make seal blocks, and just work on either side. It's really nice to have Jack Doyle. I'm glad that we can finally stop talking about the comparison of who you rather have, Jack Doyle or Eric Ebron, because I think we all know it's Jack Doyle. Whether or not you want to say it's Ebron, you're sadly mistaken. But either way, Jack Doyle, tight end number one. I'm glad to have him, and I can't wait for him to ball out again this year.
Mm-hmm. And kind of the replacement to Eric Ebron, but also more of a complete player in terms of pass catching, yes, but also run blocking, is a guy that the Colts signed this year. Trey Burton, 6'2", 238-pound tight end, formerly of the Philadelphia Eagles first. And then when he left the Eagles, he went and signed a huge contract, over $32 million with the Chicago Bears. Obviously, last year didn't work out super well. He ended up going on injured reserve and as cap casualty, got cut by the Bears. He got picked up by the Colts. And this is a guy that, last year obviously only played in 8 games. He dealt with an injury there. But he's only a year removed, Derek, from really not having a bad season with the Bears. I mean, he had 54 catches, 569 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And, I mean, you got to just think, the quarterback that he was playing with compared to what we think the quarterback situation is going to be here with the Colts, it's got to be tantalizing and got to be really intriguing for Trey Burton, Frank Reich, this offense, and even fantasy owners. I mean, you know that Frank Reich connection is strong there, and we know Trey Burton was with the Eagles when Frank Reich was there, and he threw that touchdown pass in the Super Bowl with a Philly special to Nick Foles. So, but he's also a guy that is a really good run blocker, which I think is huge. We saw with Eric Ebron, like you talked about a little bit earlier, Derek, he was really good in the red zone, right? He was a really elite at getting those touchdowns. But when it came to run blocking, I mean, honestly, you could tell when the Colts were going to pass the ball and where they were going to run the ball, because when they were going to pass the ball, Eric Ebron was most likely in. And when they were going to run the ball, he most likely was not in. So with Trey Burton, I think it allows you, Derek, to do some different things and not really show your hand so much when, calling plays, because now you have 2 really good run blocking tight ends, as well as some pretty good passing options as well for Phillip Rivers. And we talked about it, Derek, with Phillip Rivers just being a very receiver, tight end friendly, and even running back friendly type of quarterback, you got to think that just adding more weapons, adding more receiving options is going to serve him well and going to serve this Colts offense well. But give me your thoughts, Derek, here on a guy like Trey Burton. Obviously, he went from a $32 million contract to a 1-year deal, small contract with the Colts. What are your thoughts here on a guy like Trey Burton?
Yeah, it was another one of Chris Ballard's basically gem trades or deals here. I mean, he got this guy for virtually a veteran's minimum, and he's basically getting paid more by the Bears to play with us than we are paying him. Isn't that incredible? That's what Chris Ballard does. But yeah, I mean, Trey Burton is, again, another great compliment to Jack Doyle. I think he's a slightly better playmaking tight end than Jack Doyle is. I think Trey Burton has that more big play ability just because I think he's a little more athletic and the way he plays the game. But again, these two are, again, he blocks just as well as Jack Doyle, has that ability. He, again, is a very good pass catcher. He doesn't drop a lot of passes. And that's saying a lot with, having Mitch Trubisky as your quarterback the last few years. So that's, if that says anything at all. So yeah, another guy that's on the roster that performs like Jack Doyle, plays like Jack Doyle, and you're getting him for a just over veterans minimum. I mean, what else can you say about it? It's fantastic. He, like I said before, he was averaging around 9 yards a catch through his last 2 seasons with the Bears. I mean, when this guy is on the field, he balls. So the only issue you have is, again, you have to worry about his injury history. Has had a few of them, a couple things you want to be curious about, but again, it was another low risk, high reward, potential high reward pick. And that's what I love. Ballard does a lot of these. And, if Trey Burton stays healthy and shows, hey, I can perform, I can do what I need to do, that's another tight end that we know what we're going to have on the roster for at least another few years.
Yeah. And I kind of want to just dispel maybe some of the, obviously the injury last year, you got to monitor that. But you look overall at Trey Burton's career, I mean, really beyond this last season, he hasn't missed more than 1 game in his entire tenure in the NFL per season. Now, there were a few games where he played 15 games, but, for the most part, he was on the field more often than not. And I think that's something that people aren't really talking about because obviously you see the injury and you're like, oh man, you got to kind of worry about that. I kind of compare that, Derek, to even like a T.Y. Hilton. Like beyond last year, I mean, even if he was injured, he was out there and he was playing. And just because you have 1 year, I think some folks can kind of say, oh, they're injury prone. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Yeah, maybe they had a freak injury that happens in the NFL, but it's not something that I am super concerned about because he's been overall pretty durable in his time with the Eagles and the Bears. And so overall, I'm not super concerned about the durability issue myself, but that's just kind of my thoughts on the Trey Burton potential injury situation and topic on that. And now we can move over to the last guy we think's a lock to make this roster, Alie-Cox, by far the most physical specimen of this tight end group. He's 6'5", 267 pounds, played in all 16 games last year. While he doesn't add a ton in the receiving game, at least at this point in his career, he's a very, very good run blocker. And that's a trend you'll see with these Colts tight end. All 3 of these tight ends that the Colts have on their roster that are presumably going to make the final 53-man, all are very, very good at run blocking. And I think that's another emphasis, with the addition of Jonathan Taylor, with the addition of Roosevelt Nix, who doesn't really have a position, so we won't really touch on him. The Colts really want to be one of the top 5 rushing teams in the NFL, right? They were 7th last year. Frank Reich and Chris Ballard said that's not good enough. We want to be top 5. And so you throw in 3 really good run blocking tight ends. And, I just think that just speaks volumes to how committed the Colts are to being one of the best running teams. And, Frank Reich loves, as a play caller, to call plays and call games where he's wearing defenses down and he's basically taking away their will to want to play the game. And I think that's just another, level, based off of their personnel decisions on why I think the Colts are so committed to this, and that's why I think now they have 3 really good run blocking tight ends. But Derek, from the surface, what are your thoughts here on Mo Alie-Cox?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it so much how this tight end group, you could put in any one of these 3 and they all kind of perform the same way. So you know what you're really going to get for a lot of these guys, whether or not what you want to say about their pass catching ability, they all have that ability, but Mo Alie-Cox is, in my opinion, the best run blocker out of all of them, just because, again, of the size, just the sheer size of him. I mean, he's so much bigger than a guy like Jack Doyle. I mean, 2 inches taller. I think he's about 15, 20 pounds heavier. So, it's extra amount of body there that he just moves people. So Mo Alie-Cox, again, we haven't seen much of Mo Alie-Cox. It's kind of hard to make an assumption based off him with his performance because we really haven't seen a lot. We've seen a few plays. I mean, we all remember in 2018, the one-handed catch against the Raiders that Andrew Luck threw up to him. I just want to see more of that. I want to see Mo Alie-Cox go out there and do that. Like, I know this guy's athletic. He played basketball. He played college basketball at VCU. This guy can ball. This guy can move. I've seen it. I know what he can do. I want to see this guy on the field more often, getting more plays. I want to see him do that, especially in the red zone. When you're 6'5" and you're that big, I want to see you go up and get a ball. Seriously. I mean, I want to see that. It's a shame that he hasn't had the chance to do that as of recently, but maybe now with he understands his place, his role in this group. I think he understands it's his time to say, if I'm going to move up this depth chart, I need to start taking advantage of a few more things here. So I hope he does, because I mean, it's a sheer waste of talent to really be having on the bench. I would love to see Mo Alie-Cox maybe do a little more in practice to show the coaches I want more of a role here, because Ebron's gone. You got your big 3. I want to see Mo Alie-Cox. I want to see more of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he certainly does have the physical attributes. He's got everything that he needs. He's got ginormous hands. He's very athletic, like you mentioned. It would be really good to see him develop more of the passing game. It'd be interesting to see how much the addition of Phillip Rivers helps a guy like Mo Alie-Cox as well, especially in the red zone, because, you lost a major red zone piece in Eric Ebron, and now you have a physical freak type of guy, kind of that, Eric Ebron mold in terms of, just how physically gifted he is. But it would be great to see him. We already know he's such a great run blocker, to become more of a complete tight end, right? To not just strictly be a run blocker. Obviously you'll take it if he's just a run blocker, but it would be nice to see a guy like Mo Alie-Cox emerge and really just make an impact for himself and make a name for himself. So, maybe, we're thinking next year, maybe the Colts are going to look at addressing the tight end position more prominently in the draft. But maybe a guy like Mo Alie-Cox steps up and makes that not a necessity, not a top need. But it'll certainly be interesting to see, will Mo Alie-Cox take a step forward, or will he continue to just kind of be that number 3 blocking tight end? Certainly has the tools to do it, like you said, Derek. But, if he can put it all together, it'll certainly be an interesting and very lethal combo from Phillip Rivers to Mo Alie-Cox. And the last guy we want to talk about, this is kind of a wild card for me, Derek, but I thought we should address it because he did sign with the Colts as an undrafted free agent. I think I'm saying his first name right, but if I'm not, somebody in the comments will let me know. Farid Green, tight end out of Mississippi State. He's 6'3", 245. He played in 51 career games. He started 34 games at Mississippi State. Played from 2015, obviously, till 2019. In 2019, he actually had his best statistical season in terms of receiving. 21 catches for 257 yards and a touchdown reception. But he's also a pretty good run blocker as well. Like I mentioned, he's just got this trend of really good hard-nosed guys who are willing blockers. But, I think it is a good sign that he has started to develop a little bit more of his receiving game. I mean, Mississippi State, you think about it, you don't even think about them being a football school by any means, but, he obviously was decently productive there, and the Colts saw something in him where they feel like they could bring him on and give him a chance to compete for a depth spot. Derek, what are your thoughts on a guy like Farrod Green?
Yeah, again, a young tight end with little experience here. You just have to basically wonder how many tight ends are they actually going to have on the roster. I'd imagine it would be 4. So a guy like Farrod Green could make his way into this depth chart for sure. I think there were 2 other tight ends that were mentioned on the roster for the Colts, but I think they're going to mostly be practice squad guys. So
yeah, I got a couple of them pulled up. If you want me, I'll just name them
sure.
off
Go
here.
ahead and list those.
The first one that I see is Ian Bunting. I don't even really know.
I don't know who that is. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest.
I'm gonna pull it up and see if I'm on the Colts app. So apparently he was signed to the Colts practice squad on October 8th, 2019, after being released from the Jets practice squad. So that's all it really says about him. It looks like he's just kind of been around. Before that, he was with the Bears, signed as an undrafted free agent in 2019. So he's just kind of been a practice squad type of guy. Then you move over to Xavier Grimble. I think that's how you say his last name. He was signed by the Colts to a reserve future contract in December. He was previously in Pittsburgh and then San Francisco, New England. Oh, my goodness, New York. Wow, he's kind of been in different places. He's actually been in the league for a little bit. He initially was signed by the Giants as an undrafted rookie free agent in 2014. So he's been in the league a little bit longer. He's 27 years old, so a little bit more of a veteran there. And then the last guy that I have here, Matt Lengel. I think that's how you say his name, Lengel or Lengel. Let me pull it up here. It's loading. That's the last guy I have on the list, though. He was signed to the Colts practice squad in November. He actually was previously on Cincinnati's active roster in October, and then obviously he got released, so the Colts picked him up, and he went on their practice squad. So, he's been a few different places. He initially was signed by the Bengals in 2015 as an undrafted free agent, and he's 29 years old. So you got to think out of all those guys, Farrod Green's probably the guy with the most potential and upside, and he's certainly a guy that, had shown a little bit at Mississippi State, and obviously the Colts like some of the tools that they saw he could develop. So maybe he slides into that number 4 tight end position. But, you throw in a guy like Roosevelt Nix, maybe he's more of a run blocking, you keep 3 tight ends and he's just kind of like, and I don't know if you remember this name, Ryan Hewitt, that kind of guy where he's really just primarily in the game to help run block. That might be the route that the Colts go, especially, kind of with the logjam at running back. I mean, now you've got potentially 4 guys that you would be happy keeping, Right. It's kind of like a thing that we've kind of talked about on this podcast before. Like, where do you make the cuts on this roster? Because you could make the cuts in a bunch of different places. But I would say out of any of those guys, if the Colts do indeed keep 4 tight ends, it would probably be a guy like Farrod Green. He's really the only guy I could see the Colts potentially taking a risk on, maybe similar to like Hale Hinchis last year.
Yeah.
Kind of, he shows out in the preseason. The Colts decide, hey. Yeah, I know.
That was
he
your
was one
boy.
of my preseason
That was your boy for the first
I
half of the season.
I remember when the Redskins picked him up, I said, you know what? Screw this. I hope the Redskins lose every game, and they were terrible. So fortunate for the Colts because the Colts had their second-round pick.
They got a rookie quarterback in Dwayne Haskins. They have no receivers. They had a busted-up running back group.
Harry.
They got who?
Harry McLaurin's pretty good.
Yeah, but that's the only one. No, you can't win every game with one. They didn't have a great offensive line. Their defense is crap right now. Well, I guess I can't say that. Their defense was okay throughout the whole season. They weren't great, but they weren't bad either. So,
yeah, it was just a disaster in Washington.
When you have an average offense and an average defense, well, I should say below average offense and a average defense, that's not a recipe for success.
Yeah.
Even
sure.
in the NFC least.
Right. That's very true. But yeah, that's kind of the debate that we're going to have, Derek, throughout this offseason. We'll probably make a video, honestly, about what position groups do you cut down? What position groups do you keep at a little bit more? Because there can be debates made on every single side for this. So it'll be interesting to dive in more to that as, training camp comes around, the preseason comes around. Those would be some good topics that we can talk about. But that'll do it for this podcast, looking at the Indianapolis Colts tight ends. Let us know your thoughts on all these tight ends. I mean, I think this one is more clear-cut and not as controversial, especially not like the Chad Kelly one. That was the one out of all these videos. That's the one we got the most pushback and the most dislikes on. So whatever. I think this one's pretty straightforward. I'll take the fall for that. I probably did that, but tight end's pretty clear-cut.
Did it? That's you mentioned it first, but I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say Chad Kelly is amazing because he's not.
Oh, crap. This is going to be the second most disliked video now. We just slandered his name
Chad
again.
Kelly's name up in here. Dang it.
The savior. Oh, dear. Okay, I'm going to stop before I get myself in trouble. All right, cool. That wraps up this podcast, guys. Thank you so much for all your support of us. Like Derek said before at the start of the podcast, be sure to enter that giveaway because we'd love for you to be entered into this. And also it helps us get more subs, get more people brought to the podcast. And so we're mutually helping each other here. So for Derek and myself, thank you guys so much. And as always, go Colts.